Hello and welcome to another edition of Empathy at the Table. I'm looking forward to this conversation with Abbas Idaresit. Abbas is a Nigerian tech entrepreneur who has invested in several companies across Africa, and he now spends his time as a philanthropist, as a futurist thinker, and as an investor. He shares with us today some of his ideas behind how we negotiate in high context cultures. He shares with us his personal approach to negotiation and how he uses empathy, but also with a little bit of haggling in terms of how he negotiates and gets the best deals, thinking strategically and long term. It's a great conversation, and I'm really looking forward to this. Thanks very much, and join us on Empathy at the Table. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Empathy at the Table. And I'm really excited to introduce our next guest. His name is Abbas Idaresit, and he resides in Lagos, Nigeria. Now, Abbas and I actually met just by, it was really by luck. We met at a bar in Lagos, Nigeria, where he was talking about his interest in salsa dancing, of all things. So I wanted to open up this conversation. Abbas is an incredible human being. He's an incredible philanthropist. He's an incredible entrepreneur, very well known within the tech sector in Nigeria. So I'd like to welcome you to our podcast. And Abbas, for the people who may not know you on this side of the ocean, could you share a little bit about who you are and what it is you do? Welcome, Abbas.
Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you. My name is Abasiama Idaresit, Abbas for short for my first name. I studied information systems and management, University of London, and I do have an MBA from Manchester Business School. Over the last 1.5 decade, I have been very active in the technology ecosystem in Africa. I run a company, a holding company, a technology holding company called Wild Fusion. We do have subsidiaries and subsidiary companies in digital marketing, agency banking, digital training, and lending infrastructure, fintech, and also most importantly, an angel investing subsidiary. This is where a lot of the negotiations, take place, where we specifically invest in early stage technology startups. So,
Wonderful.
yeah, so in a nutshell, that's what I do for my day to day, and I'm very excited to be on the show today, Tony. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Abbas. So, Abbas, I put your name into ChatGPT. We don't use Google anymore. We use ChatGPT, and I said, could you tell me how you would describe Abbas Idaresit? And this is what came out. Abbas is a visionary. He's boldly independent, leaving UK to return to Nigeria and to build something from scratch. This suggests confidence, a strong sense of purpose, and probably a good dose of risk tolerance. He's a strategic thinker, given his background in information systems and how he positioned Wild Fusion early on as a Google certified partner. He's likely to be sharp, analytical, and plays the long game. He's also grounded and ambitious. He's involved in boards like Leap Africa, and supporting startup shows that this is somebody who is still connected to the community and values giving back, even while scaling big. He probably comes off as calm, cool, charismatic, but also somebody who you wouldn't want to underestimate in a business negotiation. So that's
Oh
what
my God,
ChatGPT
Tony,
thinks of
you
you.
didn't do this. Oh my God, quite intelligent, to be honest. Absolutely intelligent.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how does that resonate with you when you hear that as a personality report from ChatGPT?
So the future is here. This is the era of artificial intelligence. The industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution is here. We have to brace ourselves. We're going to experience tremendous shifts in positive and also perhaps some disruptive shift in how we work, how we live our lives, culture, society, and all of that. So It's very important for us to also put in the guardrails to mitigate whatever challenges we may face that may come through this. Privacy, data sovereignty, cyber sovereignty, and um, digital sovereignty, if you may. So there are a number of, it comes with good, but we also have to be conscious and ensure that whatever opportunities that this age brings, it's sustainable, it's inclusive, and yeah, we can sustainably pass it from one generation to another. So I
Mm,
am happy. Yeah, I mean, this is a good time to be alive and also the good time to invest in technology and ensure that
mm.
it's a win-win for everyone.
Can you paint a picture for us of what the tech, the digital tech landscape is like in Nigeria and even more so in Africa? Just give us, a sense of what you're seeing coming over the horizon. Where are some of the major opportunities and some of the threats within the digital technology space?
Right, absolutely, absolutely. So Africa has evolved significantly over the last decade from a technology point of view. Obviously, this has been led by the telecommunication companies. Perhaps you probably have heard of M-Pesa, which is mobile money, which is Africa's contribution to the world of financial technology. And over the last 10 years, Africa has evolved sustainably and also in a good way. The challenge, however, there are litany of challenges that still do remain, especially with infrastructure. And when I mean infrastructure, it is both human infrastructure, human capacity to build, to create, and also physical infrastructure. Most of the data centers are powered with, diesel generators. A number of the base stations for the telcos are powered with diesel infrastructure, especially in a place like Nigeria and some other countries. There are also threats around data sovereignty, cyber sovereignty, digital sovereignty, and all of these have to be mitigated. Unfortunately, digital regulation doesn't evolve as fast as technology. So every time regulation is always trying to catch up, with cryptocurrency, with blockchain, with artificial intelligence, with all of these new innovations that does come up from time to time. Be that as it may, tremendous opportunity, massive opportunity, because technology presents a great um, once in a lifetime opportunity for Africa to leapfrog, certain infrastructure challenges. Let me give you a classic example. Africa didn't have to wait to have landlines, connected to every homes before we moved to mobile phones. It actually, leapfrog from, where we were. I don't know the numbers I've heard. If memory serves me correct, I know Nigeria's penetration was very low, less than 1%. And suddenly we moved to about 80, over 80% penetration, mobile penetration, and this was made possible with the mobile phone. That's a classic example of how technology evolution has, moved an African country from point A to point B. Yeah.
Mm, mm. And I mean, I know you're passionate about leveraging technology to solve some of the biggest challenges, especially, for example, in education. I know you're doing a lot of work in education. Can you share with us what are the challenges, some of the major challenges you're seeing in that space, and how are you using your company and your resources to help solve those challenges?
So a lot of the challenges with education has to do with infrastructure, human infrastructure, So we definitely have to we definitely we need the human capital to be able to man this technology. And we also have to face the challenge of having significant portion of our best minds migrating out of the continent, moving to better economic climes or working with much bigger companies. So as quickly as possible, we have to retool the
Mm,
existing sets of people, and sometimes it's very slow. It doesn't happen overnight. So those are just some of the challenges. Even sourcing for the right trainers, the right infrastructure, the right software to retool and train can also be a challenge. So those are some of the challenges that are out there. But something else, Tony, that it's very that gives me a lot of excitement. It's the passion with African youths, with the Nigerian youths, the passion I see because Africa is predominantly very young demographic. The average age in Nigeria is 19 years. So these are countries. Nigeria is a country that is very pro technology, very open. The excitement, the adoption, they're quick to adopt, and this is also very, very good and important. But the biggest problem to capacity building is its infrastructure for us, both
Mm.
human and physical.
Yeah, you said something really, really interesting. I mean, obviously, that's a very exciting statistic. That the average age of a Nigerian is 19. But you also said that there is a real positive vibe, positive acknowledgement around technology, so that the barriers that you might see maybe in some of the more some of the more developed, for want of a better term, but I don't mean developed in terms of infrastructure. I'm talking about it in terms of maybe a Silicon Valley type company versus a new fintech starting off in Nigeria. Are you saying that some of those barriers to entry in terms of regulation may not be there?
Absolutely. Some of those barriers to entry may not be there, but also it's also dangerous because the barriers to entry from the regulation from a standpoint, it's also their guardrails. So I give
Mm,
you a classic example. Just recently, Nigeria just passed regulation for the blockchain technology, and prior to that, the government and even the regulators um, were hostile to the blockchain or the crypto technology because they weren't, I mean, we didn't have a very structured, organized, well-defined, structured approach to regulating cryptocurrencies or the blockchain technology. So the regulation is so important. They are guardrails. They also help the industry evolve. But a lot of times the regulators it's struggling to catch up with innovation, and that makes it very difficult sometimes
mm, mm.
to for investors, also makes it very difficult for players in the space. And also it's an opportunity because of the absence of guardrails. It's also opportunity for the the people looking to exploit this
Right.
regulatory vacuum to take advantage of these opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a worldwide phenomenon, really, isn't it? I think that
Yeah.
technology is always way ahead of the regulations. When you look at, I mean, so I'm talking to you as if I don't know anything about what's going on in there. So for the listeners, I mean, I'm a Nigerian myself, and I was in Nigeria too about a month and a half ago, where that's where Abbas and I met. And so, one thing I know about our culture is we're very high context, which by that I mean there's a lot of relationships. We base a lot of how we do things on relationship, who rather than what sometimes there's a lot of nuances within the culture. There's lots of things are not said, but they're implied. And when it comes to, and there are other high context cultures as well. I think India is
Right.
another high text culture. There's a lot of high context cultures, but there are nuances that get in that kind of when it comes to negotiating with these type of context. How do you find when you're like negotiating deals where relationships really do matter, like who really does matter, and the what else that you're bringing to the table, the pedigree that you're bringing to the table matters. When you are in these type of situations and you looking to negotiate deals, how do you approach these type of deals with your investors or companies that you're investing in?
Right. So absolutely, Tony. You're absolutely right. Culture, it's a critical component of negotiation. It influences negotiation. Some culture are very stoic. Some culture are very relationship heavy. So to negotiate a deal successfully, it's not just about signing on the dotted lines, it's also about building relationships. So you might actually end up seeing tension between two different cultures. One that just
Exactly. Yeah.
says, you know what, I don't want to waste my time. This is just a deal. Let's get going. Another one's like, hey, slow down. You're moving so fast. We need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
build a relationship. So it's very easy to experience such things. And I'll tell you something, what happened a few years ago. So I started a negotiation with a now friend of mine. He was based in he's based in the UK, and we went back and forth over the phone, over the internet conference calls on how we should carry out this transaction. And at some point, we decided to meet in London. So I got on a plane and off I went to London. And when I got to London, it was it was a different. We were supposed to get to the table. We were supposed to sit on the table, see physically, and tidy up the deal. But when we got to the table, he said, "Come on, let's have lunch." And we went out for lunch. We had a very great. We had a great experience. Talking about so many things. We had a lot in common. We realized that we loved the same band, Coldplay. So, and he had a hobby. He loved music. He had a studio. And he was like, his studio is next door. Let's go see
Mm.
the studio. And I'm like, yes, let's go see the studio. Now, this is two businessmen across the Sahara in the studio singing Coldplay's Yellow instead of negotiating a deal. And it was such a beautiful experience. Now, when that was done, we came back so excited. We came back like friends that we felt like friends that had known ourselves for years. And all the difficult points in the contract and
Yeah.
negotiation, everything just got waved off, or like, oh, no, no, don't worry about that. I'll do it. Oh, no, 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 don't worry
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
That's it. And at the end of the day, we signed a deal. I walked away feeling he was going to look out for me. He walked away feeling the same. Right now we are friends. We're not just business partners, we're now
Yeah.
friends. So it's very important um looking at negotiation as um a contractual relationship, but looking to build a sustainable relationship out of this negotiation. So circling back to Nigeria, we do have we as a negotiator, you have to be able to understand the background of whoever is sitting at the other side of the table and be open-minded to accommodate the background. In this case, I was open-minded and I could accommodate him. I could say, oh, hold on a second. I didn't fly all the way 6 hours to London to sing Coldplay in the studio, but I could make up time to build friendship. And on the back of that, we have had so many business opportunities on the back of that. So in Nigeria, coming back to Nigeria's case, we have a much more different approach to negotiation. Yes, it's about who you know, and sometimes um, if one feels that he doesn't know you well enough, that might also inhibit the transaction, irrespective of
Mm.
your capacity, you know, irrespective of your capacity. So relationship is very important, and relationship is very key. So
Yeah.
in negotiating, absolutely key.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I talk about this a lot. This idea of what's going on in the shadows, right? And you come together to do a negotiation, and on paper it looks fantastic. The deal looks incredible, but there's something else that's going on that maybe I may not say or you may not say, but it's there, and it's an emotional thing. It's maybe I don't feel comfortable with you. I don't feel I trust you. I don't feel I know you. Or I've heard something about you, but there's something that's going on in the background, an almost intangible emotion that's draining and sucking the actual creativity out of a potential deal. And you may never know. So we may walk away and I may drag my heels on the deal or may never see you again. And you'll never actually know because on paper it looked like a great deal. And so
Deal.
I think it's always important to, as you said, put it up front and relationships are important, unless it's a transactional relationship, which there are loads of transactional relationships. But,
Right.
especially what I noticed in Nigeria, there is a heavy bias, a heavy emphasis on building relationships first before you actually go into doing deals.
Absolutely, absolutely. So not just in Nigeria, we also have that in a number of other countries. Um, we have that in a number of other countries. Relationship is very key. They want to get to the other side of the table wants to get to know you more than
Yeah.
what you have on paper. I give you a classic example. One of our country director we hired, a foreigner at some point, after negotiating, he was more keen about he invited me over for dinner. Let's have dinner with my family, with my wife and kid. And I
Mm.
felt, to be honest, I was a bit discomforted by by that, gesture. And I felt like this is business, let's leave family. And he was
Hmm.
like, no, come over. My wife makes the best, um, you know, XYZ, come over for dinner. At the end of the day, I did go for dinner and from there we built relationship. And that's also good because it wasn't a transactional relationship. He was going to come work with me. And to work with someone, you definitely have to build a relationship sometimes,
Mm.
to have a good working relationship. So yes, absolutely.
What about when it comes to really being tough, in negotiations? So I'm asking this question, Abbas, because I remember in our last conversation, I introduced to you the term of healthy conflict, and you said, "Wow, healthy conflict." Now, as far as I'm concerned, a conflict, there's no
It's
such thing as a healthy conflict. Either we're in conflict or we're not. Right. So let's open that box a little bit and see, what's your when it comes to conflict, what is your attitude towards conflict and how do you normally deal with it?
So the way I approach conflict, I approach it from an empathy point of view. It's
Okay.
empathy, it's one of the pillars of emotional intelligence. It's so important that you understand where the other party it's coming from. It's very important you understand the other party's perspective, you know. So I come from an empathy point of view, and we can have a disagreement today, and at the end of the day, once you listen and empathize with the other table, you can see why you're at loggerheads. It could be a cultural or a social barrier, or it could be something intangible that created that conflict. So in that particular stage, as in that particular phase, it is healthy, you know. It's very important to accommodate, it's very important to be open-minded, to relationships and sorry, to negotiations that might lead to that type of healthy conflict. And I tell you another story, Tony. All of this is just coming together. One of the companies we invested an angel investment, sorry, we made an angel investment of a token in this company. Few months down the line, the CEO came back and asked for to borrow five times the amount. And we said,
Mm.
okay, we're going to give it to you. We gave it to him. And a few months down the line, when it was due, he asked, please, he doesn't want to pay back, that can we convert this to equity as opposed to paying the debt back? And we did not like that because we felt, no, that wasn't the terms of the agreement. He said a lot of things that happened. The company is going so fast. I need all the penny I can muster. Please, can you convert this? You already have equity in the company. Can you convert this to equity? And we were so stoic, which I do regret now, Tony. Um, we're so stoic,
Mm.
which I do regret now, and we refused. So he did all he could, mopped up everything he had, and repaid back the money. Guess what, Tony? That company got acquired few years later by a company that whose revenue is $12 billion a year. And all we got out was the token, the first token we made at first. We all
Wow.
regretted because if we had more empathy, if we listened to him, if we were,
Mm.
if we listen and we approach that particular tension or conflict at that time with a much more open mind, we would have created a win-win scenario for both parties. But we lost out because we were not listening. We were very hard on our position. We didn't create a win-win situation at that instance. It was, a win-lose situation and we lost out.
That's a
So,
fantastic story. Yeah, that's
yeah,
a perfect illustration of when to go hard and when to kind of go soft, right? But I think it sounds like when he came back to you and changed the terms of the deal, there was probably a sense of deceit on your part because he tried to change the terms of the deal.
absolutely.
So, maybe there was something he could have done to signpost what was going along the way so that it wasn't a surprise. And maybe you could have together come to that same
To an
conclusion that
agreement.
it was best. Yeah, yeah. So I think in situations like that, it's important to have that level of transparency, with each other and see the the business as the problem, not the other person as the problem,
That's a
right?
problem.
The business, yeah, 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 and
Yeah.
and and so when it comes to this healthy tension, I like the term healthy tension because I think I always believe that when there is a tension around something, that's some data points of information, right? There's something wants to happen, something is looking to emerge from that tension, and if you're pulling one way and I'm pulling another way, then if we have the right tools to approach this and the right level of emotional intelligence, we can actually figure out, well, what is it that's causing your tension? Why are you digging your heels
Absolutely.
in? And vice
Absolutely.
versa.
Absolutely, Tony. Absolutely. 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 So it requires some level of emotional
Sure.
maturity on both sides of the table.
Yeah.
It requires some form of emotional maturity on both sides of the table because it happens every day. It
Yeah.
happens every
Yeah.
day. You may be negotiating a contract today, tomorrow, an investment deal, whatever. We're negotiating almost every day of our lives.
Every day. That's right.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely agree with you.
So, Abbas, you were listed in Forbes as one of the 10 top tech millionaire
Oh God.
African entrepreneurs,
You didn't go there.
and I think I read, yeah, I did my homework. Dollars. How managed now?
Totally. To be honest, it's just being it's being at the right place at the right time. This was
No, 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 no,
this
Abbas.
no. Hold on.
You're
Let me
too
break that.
too
Let
humble.
me let me break that down for you.
Okay,
It
okay.
was literally on the verge of a particular phase. So this was in 2009, 2010, about 15 years ago, and this was the era digital internet technology was just picking up across Africa. Google was just setting up its office in Africa, its first office in West Africa at that time, and Kenya and East Africa. Significant amount of Africa hadn't had as of that time, or Nigeria hadn't had. I don't think we had our first investment as of that time. This was pre Twitter, this was pre Instagram, so this was like the dark ages, if you may. There were dinosaurs on the streets, so it was timely and that growth rate. So when the growth came, when the industry opened up, the first movers at that point in time were able to get moving, to ramp up the revenue at that point in time. So I expanded to Ghana and I also went up to Kenya to set up operation. And I also have interesting negotiation stories to tell while going through this market. So, but maybe probably when we get to that stage, I'll tell you. But yes, um, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. And it's happening again today. Now we are at the stage where the AI um,
Hmm.
boom has taken off. There's a lot of billions of dollars are being poured into AI infrastructure, data center, NVIDIA, ChatGPT, just like you've mentioned. The US is very particular about investment in AI, the Far East, so Global South, all the countries. Now, the first movers, the early players, they stand to grow aggressively with this next phase of growth. So this
Hmm.
happens from time to time. It's just also about identifying, as a businessman. strategically, what is the next wave, and how can I ride that wave? How can I be a first mover? And also being at that's why I said it's good being at the right place at the right time, Tony.
Yeah. What's how would your stakeholders or people who dealt with you, how would they describe your negotiation style?
Stakeholders. So I'm very long term. I'm very long term in my thinking. I'm very long term in my negotiation skills. I think that came from my passion for chess. So very strategic in my um, short term decisions. So I make short term decisions, keeping in mind long term objectives and all of that. So my negotiation style, it's very empathetic and also at the same time very long term. In the people on my side of the table would describe me as very long term strategic, as a long term strategic thinker. And yeah, and sometimes when you're making long term strategic decisions, the decisions today are typically not, they don't look ideal for the moment. People don't understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
They're wondering,
Mm,
why did you do that? That looks foolish. But that is, you're not looking at the short-term outcome. You're looking at long-term outcome. You're looking at 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, when making those decisions. So the people
mm,
on my side of the table would say he is a strategic long-term thinker.
mm. And when people that you have in your team, so your immediate direct reports, what's when you, because you've got under your holding company, you've got several different companies under your
Yep.
holding company. So people who are your direct reports, how do you deal with when you need to really put your foot down and you really need to put some barriers up and let people know, you know, what's what? How would you approach those type of discussions?
Very interesting question. Absolutely. So one way I do that, I look at it from their perspective. I do that a lot. It always comes from their
Mm,
perspective. If you do it this way, this is how it this is how it reflects on you. If you make this decision, you have to find a way, you have to find a fulcrum or a spot where both interests converge. My interest, what I'm trying to get you to achieve, and your interest, it could be career, it could be professional, it could be personal or financial. I have to find that convergence point and say, listen, this is where we should be together. If by doing this, this will get you to where you're going to. So
mm.
basically, um, getting the other party or my direct report to see why they have to do X, Y, Z. It's also in their own interest. So it's not just about the company and it's not just about Abbas.
I like your approach to negotiation, and I was wondering when I was doing my research, I was wondering, you know, where does that style come from, right? And then I found an interview where you talked about the importance of travel, and you even quoted Vasco da Gama
Oh God,
and
oh
his
God.
travel. And so I thought, okay, right. You know, you're quoting the Phoenicians, you're quoting, you know, Vasco da Gama and how he
Oh
connected
God.
Europe and Asia. And I thought, wow, this guy really understands that, you know, the power of travel, the power of, you know, looking outside and beyond his particular horizon. So my question is, how much would you say that your outside perspective has influenced the way you negotiate internally?
Significantly, significantly, I'll be honest with you, Tony.
Mm.
Significantly. So it's not just about traveling, but reading books, reading books, traveling, um, having that multicultural experiences, different countries, relating with people from different backgrounds. I have people in the Far East. I have friends in the Far East. Their approach to negotiation, Tony, let me tell you something. I don't want to mention the country, but perhaps you will know as an expert. After a negotiation, you probably wouldn't know. You probably think they are thinking about it, whereas it's a no from them because they are
Yeah.
very polite, they are very nice, they are very cautious. Um, but across the Atlantic to the west, you'll be told, hey, no, this doesn't work for me. That's it. And you will know it didn't work out. But
Mm,
on the other side of the Indian Ocean, you will definitely get to see people um, that are more polite and cautious. And there is a lot of context to conversation. They're not direct, you know. So when you travel, when you read, when you meet different types of people, all of this influence who you are as a person and influence the way you make your decisions, including the way you negotiate. And that significantly has influenced me
mm,
significantly. I told you another story when we were setting up okay, I'll mention Ghana. When we were setting up in Ghana, that was the first country we went to. And one of the first hire you will make is a country director. So typically, I had my panel, the people on my side of the table. We had an amount we wanted to offer, and then typically, what happens to a typical Nigerian, we haggle a lot. You don't give your final offer first. You give a little bit. You give some breathing space to your final offer, and you put that on the table, and you expect a negotiation to get to the final offer. So, when we put down our first offer on the table, the gentleman was so qualified, overly qualified for the role, very experienced, and we put our first offer on the table. Quietly, he said, I'll take it.
mm.
We started doubting ourselves.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
like, did we do something wrong? Is there something we did? We all started, my team, they questioned themselves. Perhaps there is a deficiency we haven't noticed. How could he take the first offer? It's very unnatural because they came from a background where people haggle everything, you know. so so at the end of the day, he took the offer, and then the difference between what we wanted to, our final offer, and what he took, we had to then plow that in as allowances. We had to then put that in as allowances for him, so
Wow.
as his allowance for him. So he got on board and he did a fantastic job. The moral of the story here, Tony, it's I'm trying to emphasize the diversity in negotiation and how culture influences negotiation. In that particular context or culture or country, they don't go back and forth.
Mm.
What you offer, I will take it and I'll do the job. And that was so strange for my team. So he took the job and he did a fantastic job as a country director.
But what that says, I mean, it's testimony to you when you said, well, then knowing that you could have offered more, you actually kind of, and after he'd done a great job, you ensured that the compensation package, the
Yep.
variable included the margin that you could have offered him. And
Yep, absolutely.
on my trip to Nigeria, I came back with this sense, and I said to my friend, what I love about Nigeria is that everybody has a "open for business" sign on their forehead, right? Everyone's up for a deal, right? You can make
Oh
things happen.
God.
Yeah, I mean, would you concur with that?
Nigerians are very entrepreneurial.
Yeah,
They are they are inherently enterprising people.
yeah,
So open for business on the forehead. And well, what I would say is Nigerians are very enterprising, overly enterprising. And that's why you see Tony, come on now.
yeah.
So
Overly.
overly enterprising. Yes, I'll use
Yeah.
that word. So I think it's a good thing. And I also think the challenges in the economy has also fueled that enterprising nature in the people that
Mm.
reside in this part of the
Yeah,
world. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, Abbas, I mean, I could talk to you forever, as you know, and I'm sure we're going to have many more conversations. But as we come to a close, I'd just like to ask you, um, what is it you're working on right now that's really exciting, and how can our listeners, if they want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Okay, so what I'm working on that is very exciting for me, is an agency bank, and I'm very particular about that. The reason why um, it's taking financial services to the bottom of the pyramid, to the unbanked, to the unserved. And that is so important, especially in a place like Africa, because access to financial services can move, people can move people out of poverty, can move the poor out of poverty. If you've heard of Grameen Bank by Mohammed Yunus, he's an inspiration to me. So I'm so passionate about this, and that's what I'm working on right now. I'm putting every single thing, and we're hoping to reach at least 2 million underserved by end of this year, and unlocking financial service to this
Wonderful.
people by the
What's
end
the
of the
name of
year.
the bank?
It's a company called Supply Smart. Supply Smart.
Supply Smart. We'll put a link in the bio there.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much
So
indeed. And I can be reached on Twitter at Abasiama. That's my first name, at Abasiama on Twitter. I can be reached on that. So I'm only active on Twitter and LinkedIn. I know that
okay.
sounds very serious, but yeah,
That's your playground, and
that's
we
my
can find
playground.
you also in some of the salsa bars around Lagos as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And something, Tony, about salsa and negotiation. Negotiation is like salsa. So when two parties are moving together, sensing each other's movement and rhythm, it all to an onlooker, it looks beautiful. It becomes a win-win, rhythmic motion or experience. So that's what negotiation should be like, where two parties are moving in tandem to each other's needs and emotions
Wow.
and empathy. So yeah, let me
And if you
end with
step on
that.
someone's toes, you might get a slap in the face.
If you step on someone's toes, well, you shouldn't step on someone's toes if you know what you're doing. Yeah.
Abbas, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a
Thank you very
really
much indeed. I
entertaining
appreciate.
conversation. Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much, and I
having
look
me.
forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you very much indeed. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye bye.